On this episode, I'll be seeing if the cylinder head off my 4.2 liter XK engine is usable or not. Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and if you're new to my channel, I hope you stick around and consider subscribing for some great Jaguar and classic car related content every week. Navigate to my channel down below, check out the videos, and while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and bell notification and you won't miss any future updates. Today's video is the next video in going over that 1975 XJ6 over there. I have the head off, it's on my bench, and it's time to have a look at it to see what needs to be done with it before we put it back onto the car. If you haven't seen the previous videos, I put a link to a playlist up above and down below so you can catch up. But to briefly recap, basically this car blew its head gasket, and I've started to come to realize that it probably happened because the head wasn't torqued on it correctly. It seems that the head studs were not all the way down into the block, and there were some washers and things missing when it was assembled. So basically an incorrectly torqued head, and that's why the head gasket failed. So I do believe that the head has not been damaged. I don't think the car actually really overheated. I think it just built up pressure in the cooling system. That's why the cooling hose blew, and I was pretty lucky that it blew right when the owner was about to turn off the car anyway, just a few hundred meters. So it was just coasting in, and then the car was turned off. So I think minimum damage has been done to this engine, and that's why I believe the cylinder head is not warped. So in this video, I'm going to use some basic tools that you have at home to check over the head and show how you can check a cylinder head that you have at home if it's warped or not. Because if it's not warped and there's nothing else wrong with it, you don't have to send it to a machine shop. Of course, if you're doing a full nut and bolt restoration and you're doing everything on the car, you'll probably send your engine off to have it rebuilt. But that costs a lot of money. And to be honest, that XJ6 is a great car, but it's not really worth enough at the moment to put in a whole engine rebuild. And of course, this whole video series and the whole reason I bought that car is to show how you can find a car that's a little bit neglected, do things at home that most people can do with access to your garage and some tools, and get that thing back on the road for not that much money at all. So keeping with that, we're going to have a look at this head at home, see if it's salvageable, and if it is, clean it up at home, do a valve job on it, and everything we can, put new valve seals in it, everything that you can do at home, put it back in the car, and hopefully get it running really well. So let's head over to the workbench. I'll show you the tools you'll need to check if the head is straight or warped, and also how to remove the valves and continue to disassemble the head. Here are tools I use to check the XK cylinder head and to disassemble it. A long straight edge and a 4/1000 of an inch feeler gauge to check if the head is warped or not, a valve spring compressor to get the valves out, small screwdriver and a magnet helps to get those keepers out, 1/2 inch wrench and socket to get the cams out, and if you're putting the cams back in like I'll be doing later to check that they run freely, a torque wrench is needed to torque them down. Before I continue disassembling this head even more and cleaning it, I want to check if it's usable or not. So I'm going to check if it's warped with a long straight edge and a feeler gauge. The maximum tolerance for one of these cylinder heads is 4/1000 of an inch, or about 0.1 millimeters. So I have a 4/1000 of an inch feeler gauge. If it's warped less than that, it's going to seal no problem at all. You just have to clean off the surface. And that's pretty logical if you think about it, because I measured the old head gasket. It's about 2 millimeters thick, and it has been compressed. So let's say it's about 2 to 2.5 millimeters when it's brand new. So if you have a 2.5 millimeter head gasket and the warp pitch is less than 0.1 millimeters, that's definitely going to seal up if you torque it down correctly. So let's see if this head passes the test. Get the long straight edge, lay it down the middle. I'm going to first check down here, then we'll check diagonally, both ways, up here, down here, and across as well. So you want to check every angle across the head and make sure it's not warped. So you lay it down across the middle, support it, not really putting any pressure on it at all, just lay it down there. get your feeler gauge and see if it passes through underneath. Not passing through, not passing through, not, and not. So it passed the first test. It's not warped this way. Let's try a diagonal, which is a little bit harder with all the coolant passages and things. All right, this way. Yeah, not warped at all. That was a coolant passage or head stud I went into. Fine that way. There as well. Yeah, and you're gonna check it across this way as well. But really force it, I can get in there, but definitely it's not gonna go in there freely. Not gonna go in there. Not there. And not there either. So this head's definitely passed. Doesn't have to go to the machine shop. Just gonna clean off the surface. Make sure it's nice and clean and ready for a new gasket. But before that, I want to continue disassembling the head. I'm going to take the valves out and the valve springs, turn the head around again, put the camshafts back in, torque them down, and just feel that they spin over nice and freely. Because one issue I found when I took the head off is that the camshafts bearing felt like they were way too torqued. They should only be torqued to about 9 foot-pounds, and they're on a really tight, those nuts. So I'm going to torque it to spec and make sure it runs nice and smoothly. I can't see any scoring, any damage on the cam bearings, so they seem fine, but I just want to make sure everything's okay before I continue. When removing valves and valve springs on the XK engine, one of these simple valve spring compressors works just fine. And then I like to have a screwdriver and a magnet to get the keepers out. Sometimes you might need a little hammer just to give the back of this a tap if the keepers are stuck in there and the valve spring just doesn't want to compress down. So I've done a few here already. I'm going to set this up on my last exhaust valve here, and I'll show you how to take the valve out. If your tool is adjustable like mine, you'll have to adjust it when you do your first valve. It might take a few trials to get that one out. Then the rest of them should be easy because it'll just keep the same adjustment. So take this end and put it over the top of the valve spring so the valve stem shows through. Hold on to it there. Set the back onto the valve. When you're happy that everything is centered like this in place, grab onto your tool and there you go. It just popped out. You can see in there the keepers are already falling out. If they haven't fallen out, you can always push them out of the way with a screwdriver a little bit. When the keepers are loose, you can grab a magnet tool, get them out of there. Sometimes you can get one, sometimes you're able to get both of them. One of them is slid down the sides here. I'm not going to be able to get that one out. Carefully release the pressure of the tool. Hold your hand against it. Basically, you just don't want the spring to fly off or any of the keepers to fly off. So the keeper is right there. Take out the two springs. Here's the spring. Here are the two keepers. The valve's down in there. When you take it out, just take it out a little bit and you can wiggle it back and forth. Make sure there's no excessive play. You can also take your finger and put it over the hole of the valve's guide here and pull out the valve kind of quickly and you should feel a vacuum. That came out nicely. Here's the last exhaust valve. So far I haven't seen any cracks or anything. All the valves look really nice. I'm going to put this to the side and now I'm going to do all of the intake valves as well. Here's a better look at the valve spring compressed, and here are the keepers. One there and one there on the side. So like I showed you, you can use the screwdrivers to just push them to the side. And then you can usually get them out with some type of magnet tool. Now all the valves are out of the head, so I turn it around. I'm going to put the camshafts in, torque them down to spec, and make sure they spin nice and freely. So I just put some of the oil down here on the bearings. I'm going to grab each camshaft. Now I'll torque them down to spec, and let's see if they spin nice and freely. Now both camshafts are back in, they're torqued to spec, and of course the valves are still out. And they turn really nice and smoothly. No notchiness, nothing uneven. Both of them are really good. So this cylinder head has passed all the tests I'm going to do to it. So now I can finally clean it up and make it look brand new. And then in a future video, I am going to lap the valves, do a home valve job to make sure that they seal as best as they can. And then everything is ready to put back together and put it back onto the car. And that's it for today's video. It's really great news that the head is in such good condition that it can be reused. So I'm going to continue cleaning up, making it look really nice and shiny. And we're going to clean up the surface area so it mates really well with the new gasket. But then of course I have to start on the block. So I'm going to take out the freeze plugs. I'm going to remove all the studs in there and check them and make sure that they're all right. If they're not, I'm going to get the new ones if any of them are bad. Then I'm going to clean up the block. I'm probably going to paint it and see if anything else around the engine bay needs to be painted. Because that's one thing I want to do. I want to make that engine bay look really, really nice. So thank you for all those great comments a few videos ago where I asked if you guys want me to continue with these detailed videos. Everyone seems really excited about that, so I'm definitely going to continue with detailed videos on this build and on future builds as well. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button and share it with your friends. But until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.